Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. What we're going to do, I've had a lot of requests, and in about a month I want to start this alla prima challenge and go through a lot of lessons on alla prima. But and I'm waiting for a certain medium, a brand new medium that is coming out to get here, to arrive, and it's about a month away. So what I thought we'd do is we'll do a quick bird challenge. I'm going to try to do maybe a couple of these a week, maybe do a dozen different types of garden birds. Today, well, the one I want to start out with is this one here. This is the eastern bluebird. And we had, at our place out in Pennsylvania, had lots of these. They're such a beautiful little bird. And it was always right around this time of year, a lot of our trees, hickory nut trees that we had on our property. We had about 80 different types of trees on our property out in Pennsylvania, and they would be dropping the nuts, and when we'd run over them with our car on the driveway, they would break open and there'd be like little worms inside of them, and the bluebirds would just come in everywhere. They're just really a lot of fun to paint. So I thought I'll start out this with a eastern bluebird. Now what I did was I sketched him this one out onto a board. This is an 11 by 14. This is the MDF board that I normally use, or you can use a hard board. You can order that on like Dick Blick's, or you can get it like I do from your home store and then cut it up into sheets. I base coated it here and then I smeared it with a little paint, but I base coated it with black and white and a little bit, just a tiny bit of yellow oxide. And then as I was squirting out my paints, my burnt sienna had an air bubble in it and splattered there and then went all over my board. So, but that's okay. Everything is going to change. And then I sketched out the bird. Now, I used a couple of references here. These are free images that are up on the internet. You can find them. They have no restrictions on them, so we can use them without a problem. I really like this one, but I wanted to have more of the wing come down into her here just a bit more. So I changed it just a bit, dropped the wing down, put her head here, and basically what I do is I just make a circle, because they have the bluebird. If they're looking at you, kind of at you, their head is almost like a circle here. See, they have a bit of an oval, but not quite as much as you would with like a little wren or something like that. And then, of course, this one's all puffed out. So it's obviously in the fall time, there's no leaves, but it's all puffed out. But you do more of I start out with just an oval here, and then I just start putting in my lines. I'm going to do some flowers down through here. She's going to be sitting in a tree. I'm not really sure yet exactly what I'll do. Little tiny roses or small little flowers. I'm going to let that talk to me as we get going. Let's go into this, okay? And so I'm going to start out first with and you can see my background here. It's right about a 7 or so, somewhere right around in there. But I'm going to break that up, and I've put out all my colors here. This is my standard palette that you see me paint a lot of the challenges with. This is a Hansa yellow, Darulite yellow. This is yellow oxide, naphtha red light, burnt sienna, pine green. This is phthalo blue. I put out ultramarine blue as well today, just because she is she does lean towards the ultramarine side. And then I have my red violet and my quinacridone violet. And I'm going to key off a lot of those colors right in there, and then put some warmer flowers, probably whites, yellows, and into some violets up into the front. But I want to manipulate the background here first for a bit. She's more of a blue violet, and then if I want to put, and I like in here, when she's more of a blue violet, I like a light blue, or a light blue green coming into the background here. So, but I think I'm going to take it slightly to a blue violet and go very light with it here. Okay, so we'll go right up around an 8 or a 9. Now remember, it will dry a bit darker. Now she goes kind of up this way, which means I want to put a lot of movement this way into the painting of my light here. And I want this color to model. Now I'm also going to be putting out and painting with a bit of extender today. So I have a little bit of extender there, and I add that for a couple of reasons. One, I'll be doing some blurring of my colors with the extender, but it also makes the color slide really easy, so that works. Now, I don't paint, I don't paint around. I go through, and so you can go through like this, and when you're, just take your paper towel and back it out so you can see her a little bit easier there. No problem. But I like to get a lot of paint right up around your subject, which of course is her and her head there, so that so we don't have too many streaks that will play up against her there, that we will be able to really isolate. Now, a lot of times I'll come back and I'll paint that again, so but you want some streaks out here, but you don't want too many right around in there. Okay, now let's switch over to some of the pretty colors that we might be using in other parts of the painting here. And some of our violets, blue violets here. Let's just soften that out. We might go with some burnt siennas, maybe a touch of our greens here. Let's get some lights into that so we make some nice softer grays. Some of our other colors. Now, a lot of times I'll just blur those together, just like that. Okay, I don't blend, I blur. Blur means I incorporate them together, but I don't want them to become one color. I want to see the variation of the colors into the background here. So it's kind of fun to touch into it, but don't do it too long. You'll blend them, and we don't want to blend. We're not going to blend today. We're going to blur. There's a difference. And so we'll push some of that color down here. I'm going to add a little extender here to streak some of that through. That'll be pretty. This will give some nice movement, life, energy back behind her, and some other colors here. Let's put a bit of red of the quinacridone violet, green, and burnt sienna here together. See, those are pretty. These will work. Now see, just drop some in like this. Now incorporate it, blur it, because we have a extender in here, so it's not going to dry real fast. I'm just going to blur this together. I don't want to blend it. Don't push it too much, but blur. Blur means we make the lost and found edges to our painting. Here, those of you in color theory, lost and found edges. We talk all about that here. So we'll blur that all up here. Get some of this nice color going. And, we could have, let's have a bit of green, yellow, green and stuff show up. Just a bit back down here, because we're going to have some of these flowers down in through here. So, and we'll just kind of push that around. Sometimes if I want it to go softer yet, I'll even add, use my paper towel. You've seen me do that 1,000 times, use my paper towel and pull through with a little bit of water. That color's a little weak to do that with, so, but I'll pull through with just a bit of water, and that'll be kind of nice. Get some of that in there. Now blur those together. And you have to, when you do this blurring like this, you have to use acrylics that have a good body to them, a good purity to them. Otherwise, they'll just go real dirty on you. Okay, so it doesn't work with all. You have to make sure you have good, clear pigments, because you want these colors. See, you want these colors to just come out here. Okay, now some of that will all disappear, but towards the end of the painting, it'll look like we know what we're doing, hopefully, here. Now, I'm just going to go back up here with a bit of my phthalo, a bit of that violet here. I could also use a touch of ultramarine. Helps that. Make this real light blue again, and kind of work it on my palette here so it's not too, it doesn't have too many streaks here. And just right back up into here. And just work a bit of that light. The head area on her here is where we really want the viewer to go. So I want to work a nice, some nice interest right in there. And so I'll do it now. I'll do it later in the painting, but I just want to make sure I get that nice light, because I think that light, that pretty nice light, I'm going to add just a touch of extender here and just kind of work that out here. I think that nice light will be real pretty against the blue, and we give a couple of tones of blue into her head, and I think that'll be pretty there. Let's just push a little bit more right out to there, and we'll just kind of leave it like that, some of that coloring. That's kind of pretty. All right, I'm going to drop that brush into the water, and I really like these colors in through here, the lights and stuff. I think her breast here is a little dark. I like the lighter breast. Maybe this one's a little bit too bright, but the ones we have are a little bit more toned. I think this one is just a bit saturated, but so I'll probably soften that out a bit. Now for brushes and stuff, so I used a 3/4 inch there. I will probably use my 8 or 10 flats for the painting of some flowers, some nice big soft flowers. My bird painting brushes are quite a bit different. I use, they have a couple of them here around. I have the 2 and the 4 flat. Those are some of my favorite. I also use a 4 filbert or a 2 filbert sometimes. Those are my detail brushes. Depends on how much portrait look, and through the challenge here, through the next 12 birds, I'll show you all different kinds of ways. We'll paint an entire bird with a number 4 flat, so you'll see the painterly look. On this one, I'm going to put a lot of little detail and stuff around her, so this one will take a while to paint, and I want to use my number 4 round. This is the soft. This one is my feathering brush. I really call it my feathering brush. It does wonders with the feathers. Now, and when I come in to paint a bird here, and I think what we'll do here is, let's just come in a little closer here, okay? When I paint a bird here, I generally like to get the eye in as soon as possible. Not always, but I generally like to do that. Now, in the last few years, I've been making two-toned eyes, even though you don't really see it in the bird itself. I like to put a little warm and a little cool. So what I like to do is come in here and I'll tap a little burnt sienna right into the eye first. This is just the point of my number 4 round. Now, I don't circle around. I like the eye to find its own shape, and of course we're going to put an eye ring around it and everything, but we'll work this several times, but just don't get any textures or anything like that in it. Let's get a darker violet. Let's take some blue and some red violet, some phthalo blue, red violet. Now we'll tap this in to the front part of the eye. We'll leave just a bit of that burnt sienna showing here and there in the eye, and that'll start giving you more interest. Now that is our focal point. That one is about as dark as we're going to go here. Now I'm going to take a bit of that burnt sienna and a bit of that blue. On the bluebirds here, they'll have the lower part of the beak will be darker, so I'll put in a nice lower part of the beak. I'll let it hit some of these other colors. I'll tap it around a little bit. The beak incorporates into her feathers there, so we want to tap it out like that just a bit. Okay. Now I'm going to take a bit more burnt sienna, a little bit of white right into this. We'll make a lighter gray color, which is what they have to the top part of this bird, and that is a bit light, so I'm just going to model in some more blue and sienna. And I like to do these things, sometimes stroke them a couple times. And see, I don't always stroke exactly the same, so you can get some highs and lows into the beak. That's what I like. Now, I'm going to bring the light source in over her shoulder this way here, so the actual light, she will have a light stuck plane right in there. Right there was where I want it, and I like to leave, depends on how much interest I'm going to give to a bird, but I like to leave just a little line of it there. And I let what happens, happens, and sometimes it happens really easy, and sometimes not. But I let what happens happen. Now, I'm going to go to my main painting, my bird brush, which is my number 4 flat. This is what I use first for doing what I call the undertones of the bird. And up and around her head here is basically, if you look at everything that she has here, they go very much, and it's kind of hard because this photo is kind of dark, but you get a lot of these sienna tones to the blue tones that are in there. So I want to work those tones, and I'm going to work them several times. But I love the ultramarine blue and the burnt sienna. They make a beautiful gray. This is one of the old masters grays that the masters from the Dutch masters on used it for hundreds of things. I'm going to add a little bit of extender, just so I get, and I'm just going to work for what I call an undertone. So see, that's a nice, great undertone. And what I want to do is I want to sometimes have it a little more burnt sienna, maybe up and around the eyes. And I'm going to kind of follow her head's tilting like this. So we're going to kind of pull away like this. The calligraphy you give your brush is so important to her right now. Okay? So we want to establish this plane pulling away from her. We want to take some ultramarine blue, a little bit more of the blue, maybe a touch of the white, and gray that just a bit. And we want to pull down this way into the front. And this will give her round, but we want that calligraphy pulling down. That makes the width of her head here. Okay, so the calligraphy that you use, and then you just use short, I'm going to add just a touch of extender. I use short movements coming around, and I'll let some of that background blue come through, or sometimes I'll blur it right there like that with the, depends on how much of a lost edge I want to create to the back of her head here. So it's best to have it a bit lost back there. Just blur it slightly, a couple of times, put it in, put it out, put it in, restroke it and stuff a couple of times there. Now we'll go more blue. This is the undertone. This is when you look at a let's see if this one's a little brighter. When you look at there, you'll see kind of a brownish kind of undertone, and that's what I'm looking for. And then that will make the blues look even more blue, especially it's a sienna, because burnt sienna and the ultramarine blue are complements to each other. So it's a nice one to use. So let's get a bit more of our siennas down in through here. We're not going to the dark as I want. Now see, I'm going to pull down here, and then I'm going to turn it this way a bit to hit that side plane of her face. And sometimes I'll just stick my finger in it and blur it a bit, but I want a bit of little calligraphy like that. I want to leave some of those highs and lows in that calligraphy. Let's go more burnt sienna, maybe a bit of yellow. She's going to warm up a bit. Maybe just a touch of blue to help it gray, because we'll lighten it later here. And let's go push the back part of her neckline here, come down this way, and I'll short stroke. I'm going to put some of this in, pulling down here, short choppy. This will build the edge of her breast here. Now what I want to do is blur that slightly. I don't want that to be perfect, because I want that to be a receding edge back there. So I want to blur it slightly. I want to make a lost edge, because I want your eye to come in through here, through the center of her there. So I'm always thinking lost and found edges. Those are so important. So important. And we talk about those in all the classes. You need lost and found edges. Let's warm it up. Bit more yellow here. Okay. You'll get a bit more yellow coming down this way, less sienna, less orange. We'll make some brighter colors. We'll come right down through here, and that'll work. Now, let's take our blue and our burnt sienna. This makes that beautiful gray. We'll lighten this up. This will make our first tone, and we'll hit some of these yellows and stuff. This will make the undertone. So when you look for the undertone, so you can see in my brush, that's that color that's right there. See, that'll be the undertone. We don't want to put the lights on. We want to put the undertone in. So I want some of this undertone, bit of this gray to come here, and it could have a nice variation, a little bit of blue, but see, it's a nice soft gray. I'll blur that back edge here. We'll push some of that around right down here as we get down towards her tail feathers here. Now it's going to go lighter, you see, but we're painting the undertone of the bird. And just like, I start out roses, those of you who paint roses with me, I don't start out with the lights. I start out with a medium tone. So my undertones here are usually right around in these values, right in here. These are my undertones. Then I have my lights, and then I have my shadows. Okay? So we'll put that in Let's take that. But I like to see, and the ultramarine is a real weak pigment. It dies real quick underneath the burnt sienna because the burnt sienna is a real powerful warm. So you might have to come back with just a bit of ultramarine here and there. And I want to get this kind of modeling color. That's where you get all the beauty to your birds, when you have that undertone happening there. Now let's put we're going to do the back of her wing. Let's take some phthalo and some ultramarine blue, a little bit of the violet. Let's tone it slightly with a bit of our sienna and lighten it up just a bit. This will be a slightly grayer tone than what we'll put on later. And let's just block in some movements here, some gray. Sometimes have a bit of that sienna show up. And see that what that does is that will make our final light strokes and everything, because of simultaneous contrast. It'll make our light tones and everything really shine. If I go in here with too bright a tone first, right now these tones are assisting what I'm going to be doing at the end with her. So, and we'll drop down this little point, and I put a darker, I'm going to go more violet tone, and you go to the violet, put a little green and burnt sienna together. That makes a nice dark. Let's put that back and under part of the wing right here. That'll stop at her body there. I'll push it around to the other side. Some of that nice dark can come down here into her tail. I'm going to put a bit of extender so it slides, because I'm going to do the tail here really soft and try to stay in your drawing there a little bit, Dave. And we're just going to take it out like this, just like I do with lost edges or back edges of roses and stuff. I love the lost and found look, the softness of it in a painting, and so I like that. Let's carry a bit of that. That'll be up by her tail there. Okay. So, and sometimes when they're turned or turned this way, you don't, because her wings, I folded her wings back. But sometimes if because I'll probably put a lot of flowers here, but sometimes if they're by themselves, I'll put just a point of another wing over there, or the other wing, which I like. Okay, so now the undertones here. Let's start building up. And before I go in to build up her face or anything like that, I'm going to build some of my first tones into her body here. I'm going to take some darker light yellow, maybe a little burnt sienna. This is a brighter, and you can see it's a mid-tone bright. Now I don't want to take this everywhere. I'll destroy everything I did. But I want to stroke a bit of this just through like that. Right in there. Maybe a touch or two up here by her, where her face feathers are going to come in. Let's go over with the little haunts, a little bit of yellow oxide. Now yellow oxide is a very opaque color, so we have to be a little careful. Let's add just a touch of light to that, just a touch. Maybe model it with some of this, and let's just pull down a minute here. Just touch and move, touch and move. Don't stick around in one area too much, because you'll opaque out everything. I want to get this modeling of the tone. Okay, that's our goal. We'll go just a touch lighter here, and maybe hit the angles. We could have a bit more burnt sienna too. I want to get some, that's it, more warmer orange in there as well. I'm going to take just a touch of that color, maybe right up around the eye ring, so that tone, see how that tone hits up in there as well. I'm a big advocate of travel your tones. Let's push a bit of that light just right up in there. Just little hitting areas like that, see? And that just adds so much life, that color. It's just like painting a rose or anything else we do. We add just a bit of that. It just adds so much to your bird. Let's put just a touch, pull down of some of that sienna and that yellow right in there. That'll be nice. I'm going to rinse a bit of that out of my brush. Let's so that starts to warm that up, and let's take some of that down here, a little more burnt sienna into this with some yellow, maybe some yellow oxide, maybe just a touch of blue so it tones just a little, and we'll tap in just tap in like that, some of that tone there. Okay, and we've got long ways to go, but we don't, and we don't want to opaque out everything we did. Let's add just a touch of light, because this will be the light area of her breast, and just work a bit of that short. See, they're just short brush movements here. Try not to make a line or too many in one area. And what you're doing is, see, you're looking for this modeling, and that's what makes her really pretty, is that modeling. Okay, let's take just a touch of that, maybe right up here around her beak, and I'll tap through so you pick up just a bit of that tone coming up in other parts of her body. And again, that just adds so much here. We'll add just a touch here. That's a bit light, but that's okay. There, right in that area there. Okay, now, so I use that 4 because it gives some nice broader, looks to it. I do like my 4 round as I come in to start some of the real colors and the feathers. I do like this 4 round. So let's go right into her head there, okay? And we'll take both of our blues, maybe a little heavier on the ultramarine blue, okay? Let's go with a bit of white. Let's see, okay. I could have some violet into that. I want kind of a lighter, maybe up around a value 7 or so. I'm going to put some darks on, but I want to put this about value 7 or so. Not too much lighter than what I have here is this tone. And what I want to do is just break up some of this gray tone. Don't take it all out. See, I just lightly drag this. This is what I call my feathering brush. This number 4 just works so perfectly for that. You'll see me use this on all my birds all the time. This is just my birding brush. I just love it. So I'll use that and put some of that color on. Now let's drop the value down here. Maybe a little bit more ultramarine and stuff. But we're going to change this color so many times. And I want to pull back this way a few times. Don't get rid of all your color. Leave some of that or pull back there, right along that edge. Sometimes I'll blur that right in there. Put some of that blue in there, okay? We'll get just a touch more, maybe a bit darker. And we'll stroke a bit darker. I'm leaving just a touch of that thin color right around the eye there. So we got a little bit darker. And I constantly will feed my paint a touch of extender just to keep it real wet, and so it moves and strokes pretty easy. Here, let's go a bit of that darker gray in there too. Don't want to get it always just blue. I want to get a touch of this burnt sienna with that to make that other darker gray color here right up into the front. Right up by the eye, right in there. So you get blue, and see that gray is so important because that gray will make your blue look brighter. So you'll be able to paint a beautiful bluebird without getting it too bright blue because you're using the gray to help that blue look brighter. That's good old simultaneous contrast. Let's work a little bit more blue. Not everywhere, just a bit more here. Leave some of those other tones underneath there. Let's go a bit lighter. Use it right on the tip of the brush here. Let's put just a bit of a light stroke. Just leave a little bit there for the shadow, the roundness of the shadow, and a touch through there like that. Maybe a bit. I like to go back and forth sometimes, even with some of the gray, and push on and take out. And sometimes I'll do that 5-6 times, going back and forth as I'm setting that tone, especially that light tone, in on the top front of the beak here, right by the beak, as I get that in there. And sometimes maybe even a little more violet kind of color, just little touches of it. It just adds so much interest. Now let's take this lighter, softer color, which pulls down. This forms like the cheek area of the bird. And sometimes I'll put it on like that, or sometimes I'll use a secondary brush like this and pull down through it just to pull down, and see I get that nice movement there. Sets the feather in movement, and sometimes I'll take this brush and push it down so that it opens up the hair on the front of it there, and I'll use that to just lightly pull through, and then you'll start to get some of the little feathering looks to it there too. There's 1,000 little ways I like to use the brushes here. I'm going to go a little bit more white. We'll pull down, a little bit more lighter color. See, I like that. Pull down, lift off, and see it leaves that little fractured edge right there, which is the feathering on the bird. And if we haven't covered up, which I haven't yet, if we haven't covered up all of our grays, then we're doing good. I'm just going to take a little light blue and a bit of gray, or a little bit of the burnt sienna to gray it. We'll pull just a bit of that through there. And because you will have some light feathers up in this area. All depends on the light and the photographer and stuff. And I have painted the little bluebirds 100 times. And I know them very well. So, and I like them when the light catches some of their lights up here. I like the light to the dark to show up into the birds. And I think when you do that, when you play more of your value scale along with your tones and stuff, your birds look better, and they sell better too for me. I like them. So we'll do this. Boom, boom, boom. Little bit of light there. But you see that nice feathering. So the 4 round does a little different job. Now, let's it's really hot today, and so everything's drying really fast, and I don't have the air on, so even though I feed it with some extender here, so you might have to mix colors several times, and that's okay. It's what we do. But I love being an acrylic artist because I can keep moving. I'm going to put in the eye ring here. The eye ring is a little light ring. Not all birds have that amount of light. I'm just going to touch a bit more light going around, but this really helps pop off her eye. We'll take a little bit of burnt sienna and dark, and see, I always make it just like I tell you with anything. I always make it too big, and then I end up painting it out slightly. That's what I like to do. And you know, I'll do the same with like her feathering here. Paint it out, then come back and set some other little feathers right around there. She'll have just a touch of lighter feathers up here by the top of the eye ring, which I can now put in there. Let's put in just a bit of that light up around the top of the eye ring here. And if I get it too big, so you can see this little 4 has a nice point, but it's such a soft little brush that as you drag it around there, it doesn't make a perfect line like a real synthetic liner, because it's a weak brush. It's soft, very soft brush, so it kind of drags around, and it kind of just lays off the color perfectly here. Now I'm going to put just a little mark up here by the front of her eye for her catch light, right up there like that. That'll be your catch light on her eye. Good. Now let's take some, let's let that kind of dry up a second. Here I want to do some more detailing, but I want to let it dry up a minute. Let's take some burnt sienna, just a touch of burnt sienna, some yellow and some light. Let's start coming right down in through here. This is where we're going to want to feather up. So we'll let those kind of come together. We'll feather here. Just see how I tap and lift off. That's the more of the body feathers there. And I'll build them a couple times. Let's add just a touch more light. Model that in the brush. Let's add just a bit more right into the roundness here that I want. And I'll just kind of sometimes touch and blur those together so I get a nice look to those. And I'll come backwards too with some dark and hit those in there. If I think I've got too much in one area or too much dark or too much light, I'll come back and touch just a bit more. I just want to kind of incorporate these colorings together there. So the blue goes into the light, and the light goes into the blue. Let's take both of our blues. The light goes to the blue, goes into the light kind of sienna color, and then the vice versa. That could be a bit more ultramarine there. And I'll just kind of tap those through. I like those colors. See the tones. That's what makes her pretty. Here, let's get a bit more violet. Maybe just a touch of burnt sienna into that. We'll get this nice darker, come on, here. Bit, that still could be a bit darker. More violet. Almost right down to like a value 2. Let's bring in some shadow tone. And see, make sure you get your, we're working with a lot of lights, but we want to make sure we get some nice deep shadow tones in there, because that makes her appear lighter. Okay? Again, simultaneous contrast. Here's some phthalo and some phthalo blue and just a touch of the burnt sienna here. And I'll just work that just a bit. Let's thin that out. Pull that up there. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Just like that. See, that just adds so much more life, that contrast there. So I want to make sure I get, now, you know, I use the photo for reference, but it doesn't always hit the light source that I want to use. I want some of this dark to come right around through into that part of her there. Right in there like that. And I just push, and you know, sometimes the color shears off. Sometimes if it's still wet, you'll incorporate those together. But I let what happens happen. There. That's the fun of how I paint, is that, you know, sometimes the area is dry and I get one look, and sometimes the area is wet and I get a completely different look. And I like both. I'm going to take a bit of that dark and tap that right to the front of that eye, right up by that eye. And I may have hit too much of that catch light, but I don't want to make that, when you're putting in a little catch light like that, you don't want a little round dot, because then she'll look like a bug. And I painted a lot of bugs for a long time. You don't want that. You put it on. Sometimes, you know, it's hard. It's hard to get that as just a little mark. And so sometimes I'll paint it a little bigger, and then I just push into it a touch, take some of it out. Then I get a nice catch light. So I have some of that dark coming down through there. I like that. I'm going to take a little sienna and some of these blues, and I'm just going to drop that down here on this side, almost like that's the edge of her wing mantle on that other side there, and just blur it off. So I like that lost edge coming down that side there, see? We might take just a bit of that on this edge of the wing. Now this dark on both sides kind of frames her face just a bit and causes it to pop out, see? And which is kind of what I envisioned for her. Just a little different. But yeah, and I want to take a bit more of the blue here. So ultramarine blue, some white, and let's get a different little blue. Just tapped it through there, just a touch. A little bit more of a highlight hitting. You know, they'll get the little light shimmers. Sometimes I pull it as a stroke. Sometimes I just do it as a little tap. Sometimes I'll take just the very point of this brush with some white or light blue here, and tap the small end feathers that you usually find. They're the kind, it depends on how much time I spend on the bird, but you know, these are the little downy, soft little ends of the feathers that you find right around the face area of the bird, and I like those too. So I don't always add them. That's a little too light, so we'll just tap it on there. But I don't always add them, but it all depends on how much time or what I am doing with the particular bird. But you know, this is all part of your, you know, when you paint birds, I have a whole set of all kinds of techniques, and you know, time and everything is going to determine just how much I'm going to do on those particular techniques. So, and if you want your bird to be brighter, you can certainly make her brighter than that. But I want to get some of these other colors on before I decide. But a bit of a blue-violet, a blue-green might look nice in there as well. And let's get that over towards a blue violet here and push. And so you see I'm down to just little marks, just one or two little marks of color here that are just adding some different tones, like the different tones here to her. And let's just drop that shadow around that front part of that eye a bit, and that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good on her. Maybe break that up with just a touch. So see, that's a lot of work that I would do on a bird like that. Now I'm going to leave that foreground alone there now, and I'm going to come down painting her body here with more of my four. I'm going to add a little brighter orange to it too. So we'll get a little Hansa yellow and a tiny bit of the naphtha red light. That makes a brighter orange here. Because we could brighten up some of her orange here. So, but I use the larger brush. This makes the larger, less detail, because I want that detail around her eye. And I want more of a softer look here to the feathering that's going to go into her body here. So I'm going to use the larger brush, which makes the larger but softer feathers. See? Here. And it's a touch and a lift off. So I touch and lift like this to quickly push in some of those colors here. And I like that. We'll build those just a touch lighter right there. But follow the contours here of her. Build those up a bit, right like that. Okay. And let's get some sienna with that light. Sometimes these will curve down a bit, which they do on her body, so we'll pull down just slightly. I'm always looking at the contours. Where am I in the contours of her body? And my brush is moving, the calligraphy of my brush is moving with those contours. Let's put a little yellow in there. That's good. Now let's switch over to our toned, and this is kind of dry, but we could add some water and bring that right back. A little blue. Let's add a touch of extender. This will keep it wet for a few minutes. And we'll stroke some of this back up into, that makes that nice soft color. There goes her leg. I sketched it once, I can sketch it again. So we'll push that soft color in. Let's get some lighter with some of this warm here, some whites, but not pure white, just tapping into some of that yellows and stuff there. And let's just see, it's a bigger, softer stroke that's making those feathers there. And we'll pull some of this down, let some of that dark take over here. Let's work a half tone right in between the two, right there. That push up, that brings those kind of together there. And I do like to take some like real light strokes, a few of them, right up here. Like this, especially light where her leg's going to come out there. I like that. There'll be a bit of light underneath the wing. Sometimes I'll push that right around with my finger so it softens it out a bit. Okay. And yeah, and there are some real quick, sometimes depending on the photo, quick light starts and stops of the feathers on the Eastern Bluebird, but so you might want to stop some just like that, and because see, it happens here like that, see, on that one. And so you can stop them, just a quick little light, just go boom, just like that. Maybe have a bit more paint, so when you go just like that, it looks like you know what you're doing, Dave. So we'll just drop that in there. A bit of that sienna in there, that looks pretty good. I like that. We'll work back and forth just a touch. Try not to work it too much, they'll blend, and I want to get some very soft looks of streaking with it here. There we go. Just like that, see? That's kind of nice. All depends on the light, where your light is. Let's put the light from the edge of her tail here. Pull that in. Get some of that soft light there. I just like to blur those things in so that they're very soft. Some nice grade. Burnt siennas, a little bit of, sometimes a little bit of green, burnt siennas in those. Nice grade colors, a little more blue, burnt sienna here. More of that deeper gray right in there on this back side. Just blur out the edge of her feathers here though. Just blur that right out here real quick and just let that happen. There. Now it's just, you know, and I decide, you know, do I want to take some of that light, maybe just really push a light right there. That just gives so much interest right there, you know, and to her. And it's up to you. It depends on how much detail you have on her face. And if I have a lot of detail on her face, which I do, I can support a touch more light and interest right in there. And moving that down. That makes the nice little well there, her thigh for her leg. We're going to keep the, you know, back over here, the wing is just very, very soft. I do want to kind of take a darker violet here and maybe suggest the edge of the primary flight feathers here, of her primaries. And we'll go up, maybe a little burnt sienna, a little dark. Maybe lightly suggest the secondaries here. Just the edges of those. You can take a bit of lighter blue. We're just going to, very simple, because I wanted most of her right in there. Very simple. We'll pull down a lighter blue here just to add a touch or so of some movement there. Maybe up into her mantle feathers here, let's take some blues, lighter colors, just small little. Now this is a bit onto the blue-green side, so that puts that tone in there. So let's go over to our blue violets more. Lighten that up and push some blue violet. See, you get that different tone in there. And that's pretty. Smaller little mantle feathers right up there. Matter of fact, you could do that with your number 4 round as well. But they get a bit of those. Matter of fact, that might look nice to have a few of those tapped up in there. Just some edges of light, and you'll see, you know, they do get edges of light, like right on the edges of their wings and stuff there, up in the front, right around the mantle, over the small feather coverings of their shoulder, basically is what it is. There, so I'll pop a bit of that in there, just a mark or two of that. One of the things that I like to do, and you'll see it here with kind of the sienna, I started noticing that it's kind of hard to see that there, but we get it, so the glare of the studio lights here, but there's like little hair light colors pulling up over the surface. Now sometimes I do those with lighter yellows or sometimes darker colors, but I think I'll do more of a light this time. And I do like that this is one of the signature little things that I do with my birds, is I pull a few of those, and that just incorporates the bird's wing right into her body there, and I like that. And we'll drop just a bit of some more sienna here. Just drop that right down into there. Again, it's a tone. I'm a tone painter, and so I like to approach the bird painting with all kinds of small little tones and layering the tones and getting the look that way. That's how I like to do it. And I'm going to add just a stroke or two, a little more power to that right there. Just some movement. That's all I'm looking for. See, I'll just streak up some movement of those colors there. And that makes her kind of pretty. She's very toned but you know, they do, the little bluebirds get really toned, the blues do. You can, you know, shove in some more, like a nice blue violet, light blue violet, just a little mark of that, like right up into there. Let's not cut that eye, you'll make her angry there, Dave. But add some of these other tones, just little bits of them, because they carry those. There. And it's kind of pretty. She gets some of those colors in there. And then, you know, how bright, you know, where you have your orange here. You can make your orange. Let's get more yellow into that. I grabbed too much red right away. But you can control how bright it is with that burnt sienna. Make yourself some nice oranges and come back, stroke through a bit of this, just with some of that, because we have that nice tone in there. But a bit of that orange just pops up some of her colors. Maybe a bit of light orange here. Light orange through. So you see, I'm kind of looking like, I approach the painting of the bird here, and this is kind of important. I approach the painting of the bird kind of like it's the roundness of her. And so now I'm putting in brighter, lighter colors more towards the center line of her body, and this makes her more round. Right there like that. And brightens her up a bit. So, and that's what I like to do, because I'm a tone. I like the tone. So let's come back, add a little bit of that right down to there. Leave some of that other tone. It's just kind of a real pretty little color on her. Okay, that's the bird. Now we'll just take 10 minutes and paint the flowers. We can knock these out pretty quick, right? We did 30 days of roses and stuff like that. Knock that out. You know, and you can go back and you can add a little bit more. Now, you know, in looking at her, you know, after I do the flowers, one of the things that if I was going to say, okay, well, what area would you like to work on a little bit more is, you know, maybe some brighter, lighter colors. Now, a lot of that I would do after I do the flowers, but I like this bright coming up through here, but I might just, and I'm just going to do it right now so I don't forget about it, but make a smaller, lighter statement of some of these small, and I use my number 4 because I want to keep small, and I'll get a bit of that feathering, a tap or two of that right around there, and just bring out some of that nice light that comes right up through there on her. And yeah, that's kind of nice. A little different, but I like it. Okay, so now let's go out here. I'm going to grab my 8 here. I'm going to take some burnt sienna. Now we're going to get real casual because we have the detail on the bird. And whatever we paint out here, we don't want it to be any more than what's going on you know, with her here. So I'm going to kind of just make some movements here and of some possible branches. Boy, that one's really straight here. And, you know, through and pull down through. Just some movements because we're going to have lots of stuff going on back here. Just some ideas of movement that we want to have. We want to take some of this burnt sienna and greens, maybe a little bit of our blue, and burnt sienna is really pretty as well, but those make really nice, maybe a little violet here. These all make real pretty gray colors. So let's start out with some gray. We'll lighten it up till it's just light enough here to get over on to where we might want to have some flowers. So we'll just be able to see it here like this. And I'm going to get very casual here and push some of this around. And sometimes I'll just take extender into my finger and bleed into that edge there to lose an edge of something. So I do like to use the extender to help facilitate like the softening of a color or so. I'm going to drop the tone down just a bit as I move away from that area there. And we come out through here Boom, boom, boom. And we're going to do like little rose flower kind of things here. So, and I'm just, right now what I'm doing is just moving some color and some interest and some light. Some lights out through here like that. And I don't want to do too many, perfect flowers up around her head there, because that will, detract from her head. So we want to be a little careful where we put these. Maybe some little bud flowers out here, like that, little bud flowers going out that way would be kind of pretty. Leaves. You do need some green for some leaves. So let's drop in a bit here. Drop in some of these colors. And sometimes I just stroke out like that. See, the model brush will give you different colors. Sometimes I do more perfect shaped leaves. I like to vary them up. But whatever I do out here, I'm going to paint really quickly and loose so that so it makes a nice contrast up against her, who will have some detail in her feathering and stuff here. So I push this like this, and if it's all dry, like this is dry here, just touch your finger with a little extender and push it in so that you can, just slide the color around. Let the color slide around. It doesn't need to blend or incorporate or, anything. It just needs to slide around. Let's let some of this go a little more sienna. That's pretty, because that picks up some of the tones in her. We'll get a bit darker right around in here where we're going to develop those flowers. And I'm still, believe it or not, I'm still not exactly sure on the flowers. I'm just moving colors through and contrasts through. That's all I'm doing. I'm not exactly sure exactly on the flowers yet. I have kind of an idea, but this is how a lot of my bird painting, because my main subject is done. Now she is going to control everything that goes on here with the rest of the painting here. So, and that's all I'm doing is I'm looking into her colors, and I'll grab some of her colors and push them out, just a bit of those, and see how that takes those colors out. So it takes her colors out into the painting here just a bit. Makes it look like you know what you're doing. We'll blur this out. Let's soften this out. Thin out these greens and stuff like that right out here. Just blur those out. Not too much. Just leave them soft like that. See, it doesn't need to be too much here. Boom. Just leave some movement and stuff like that. That's pretty. Here, just some soft little movement. Okay. Now I guess let's take some violets. Let's take a bit of violet, a little red violet. Let's warm that just a bit with some yellow maybe. And let's decide on a small rose or something here. That'll be kind of pretty. That one will go down that way. This one will go down that way. Let's put a bit of shadow on the bowl. I know it doesn't look like much yet, and because I've got all these other tones underneath it there. Those two are pointing the same way, and that's not a good thing to do. So let's just drop this one down a little bit this way. And some soft ideas here. Maybe a bit of one there. See, a little rosebud kind of thing would be pretty right there. Maybe we have to soften the color out, thin it out, add a little white so these up here are softer, not as much contrast. Little rosebuds will do up there. Here. We'll drop this one out this way. That'll be a nice little rounding shape there for her. Now let's pick up some light. Well, actually, let's warm first. So let's come in here with grab some of our yellows. Let's just stroke a touch of that through, just real quickly. So it's all you're looking for is to impart the color. so that you're carrying the color through. Because now as we paint the white, which I'll come up here and grab some of my white, and I'll paint some really casual roses here. Push those around. Rose type flowers. I'll let these, I'll start with these here, but I'll paint very, very casual here. And that white will tone down some of that light. Let's push a petal here, a little, just a touch more distinct because it's sitting right by her. So we'll push it just a little bit of a detail to it. Further out, we won't get any of that detail. Let's close up this side here, so that'll be a pretty little one right there. Maybe a bit more to the back side here. And let's put a touch of violet in the center. I like that violet kind of coming through. Blur that back edge just a touch. That's kind of nice. Maybe a, oops, gotta rinse that violet out. It's too cool to put in the front of the rose. Maybe just a bit here. Around. Boom, there, that's better. Maybe a touch more light, even a little texture right up here towards the front side. That'll paint that rose right there. That'll be all right. That might be too much, but let's go softer, a little bit darker, a little bit more casual, just a mark or two. Maybe a petal that points back this way, and more of a detailed edge. And see what that does is that this says, "Hey, look at her head right there." See, but we'll keep the rose itself pretty soft here, just like that. Paint this one very soft, little rosebud here. Just an idea. So that's sometimes the prettiest ones is you just do it real quick and just let it happen there, like that. Let's go more gray. We're going to go back here. I'm going to add a little extender, more gray here, so these are softer back here. And just suggestions of the shapes here. You don't need perfect and not too many of them there, because you already have some nice roses shapes. So back here, just suggest it. And that's hard. It really is, because we want to paint. We don't, the thing is you feel as an artist sometimes that you really have to paint that edge, right? To really give the viewer exactly what it is that they need to see. That's not true. And that's something you need to do. The viewer will see that. They'll see all these little marks as roses there. And the more refinement I do, the less imagination they get to have. So, and Monet said that and stuff, and it took me the longest time to figure that out and quit painting too much. And so you don't want to rob them too much of their imagination. So I'm going to take some of that nice little gray and push that right into there, just because that's a good color. Take that rose right into her leg. Don't let me forget to add her leg there. Boy, I'm getting real close to forgetting that. Let's push that in soft, push that around, so you don't need too much there. See, you'll see it as a little rose, maybe especially if I close up this edge right here a bit, give you that rounding little front that you think you need to see, a bit into the back. It doesn't need that much here, doesn't need that much, just a nice soft. We could pick up a bit more color right here, right edge, because that's right where it is. And then I get close here, I don't have to put her leg in because I covered it all up here. Let's just push in a bit here and kind of a rounding little shape, and just push it into that shape there. It's all that little rose needs. See, it doesn't need a lot. Maybe a bit more light up into the front of it though. And that's kind of pretty. One coming down this way. Just some ideas there. Nice little rose here. But this is the most important one right here. This is the one that is setting the foundation for all my roses in my painting. So I'll add just a touch more to that one there. And then I'll decide here, do I want to do some more greens and stuff? I probably want to do just a bit of cool negative painting. So some green, some violet, a little burnt sienna, and set in some nice dark. See how that sets that contrast in there? So just a bit of that contrast, a bit of that negative painting there that we did. See, it makes the back edge of that rose. So anything that, you know, if I feel a rose is not defined enough, let's take some violet, some green, and a little bit of the burnt sienna here. And I'm off the thing just a bit, but you should see that color. It's amazing. No, it's right there. It's real dark. And just, now don't go too far out with that, but you could use that for any kind of negative painting, see, to help pop out some of the shape there of the rose, or of the bird here, without going too much. And let's define up here just a bit more, maybe even more of our violety kind of colors here. Those are pretty. Let's get a bit of that blue violet. Let's just mix some of that up. Some of the heavier colors here that we use thin into the background, we'll just drop in a bit more into the painting here. And get some of those greens and stuff like that with those. Just working those out here. But just a few hits of those other lighter violets. You can turn them into some lighter little flowers if you want, smaller little flowers or ideas of them. But it just carries a bit of that color through, which looks really nice. A bit of that back up here. Right up, back up through there. Just pretty little colors. And you can add a little touch of that to your rose here. Let's go a little lighter. It's a pretty little color in the rose as well. There, like that. That's good. Now I'm going to go back before I add the final little leaves. So I should probably put in some extra stems here, heavier, here like that. Let's get a bit more of those going. Some extra stems here. And I'll use my blue and burnt sienna to make a nice idea here for her leg coming through. Nice little claw there. They have the claws that look like pterodactyls, I think. They're so heavy. We'll just break that leg up just a bit there. And I always kind of set the leg into her body or into any of the bird's bodies with just a few little, boy, that's a lot of water coming out of that brush. A few little light strokes just tapped right along there. This kind of sets it right into her body. Okay, so now let's just I liked some of the light flowers and everything. I want to make just a few marks of a light bright green, which is a good complement to those violets and stuff as well, because I think that'll be a pretty little color to see into the painting as well, as long as it doesn't take away from her too much. But a few little brighter greens going through here, there, a few little greens. Push them around sometimes. Those colors are... So see, I got a lot of detail there in the center here. Let's add just a bit of burnt sienna to tone those coming out. So, boom. A lot of nice detail there into the center. And it immediately dies down. Immediately softens out. Let's get some of it up here. See, it gives you a couple of levels of those nice greens. There, like that. Just fun little painting. Just vary a few of your greens. Something, you know, a lot of us, and it was a problem with mine for a long time, is I painted everything with the same green all the time, and I try to always catch myself, because that's a habit of mine. Just constantly use the same green, Dave, and it becomes a little bit of a problem, but you can add some little vein lines, little light or darker vein lines. Could be a bit lighter here, just a couple of them. I like them for, you know, movement and stuff out and you know, of the design. So yeah, I think, and you know, I might just, you know, good rose theory here, restate that warm right up there in the front of that yellow. That picks up the Bluebird a bit more. And just soften that out. But a bit of that yellow in there. See, it helps pick up some of the Bluebird. Soften that with just a touch of water. There, like that. And that's kind of pretty. That's kind of a... Let's back that back out just a bit more here. There you see, it's kind of a pretty little thing. I'll just take some of these lights here, tones, and just move some of these colors out here, just down and out, so that you see that softness there. See those colors? And that's kind of pretty. Maybe just a... I always like to revisit that center rose a few times. Boom. Just keep that casual there though, Dave. Maybe just a touch of the lighter. You don't need too much shape out here. Just a bit to say there's some more movement going on there. Any rose that you think is, you know, like a little bit misshapen, you don't like it quite, or maybe giving you a little bit of a problem, and they will, they'll be those. Just reset your center up and around like that, and that will help. Because see, that's just a mark, but if I put the center in, up and around, that takes it to looking a little bit more like a rose. And I found that to be quite helpful on several of my paintings from time to time. I felt like it was lost some of that nice rose shape, that I just did something like that, and it came back. The rose kind of came back in shape there. And so there you go. A nice soft little contrasty Bluebird. It is, some areas are very soft, some areas a little more contrast. Kind of pretty there, and let those just kind of soften out like that. But that's just one of, you know, many techniques that I use in painting birds, and hopefully through this challenge we'll show you quite a bit more. Now, one last thing is very important that I do like to do is I'll revisit that blue into that background here, right around her head, real light blue, here. Real light. And so I make it lighter than what I see there because it dries down darker. I'm going to mix it up pretty well. And I'm going to, that's just a touch too light. So that's best. Now I want to blur some of that back edge there. But see, this is what really gives contrast to your bird. And especially right up and around the front there. Just negative paint here right up. So you're negative painting right up to there. And look at the contrast that she starts to pull out here now. Here with that. And don't worry about blending that off. I'll show you that in a second. Worry about getting a nice found edge right on her beak right there. And then let some of that blur away right there. Just go right like that right into the background there, but you get this nice little found edge that pops her beak right off. I'm going to go right up into that flower a bit. Soften that one back. And you can do that through any flowers here that might need softening. Now what I'll do is just take water. Welcome to acrylics. Just take water and work this out like that. And I'll even go right over some of my roses and stuff just to soften them back. And it puts in that edge. And I want to leave that blurred edge there. I like that. But I like that nice, real light, boom, there it is, edge right up there by her, and it gives a bit more movement there. Now you can take some of that movement, you soften it out a little bit darker. You can draw a bit of that through your painting. You can see, and that just blurs out some of these other outsides, gives it a very contemporary look here to your painting. Let's take a bit of a larger brush and just run some of that through here. Just a different look there, right through. And I like those kinds of looks. And so do my collectors. They like those kinds of looks. There we go. Blur that right through. Use your hands if they're not too messed up. I've got a lot of green, but that's okay. It'll look like leaves. But you can see you get a nice softness and lightness there too. That, and I might want to take some burnt siennas and my blues. Let's just drop it right in here real quick and gray that out. Just fix up her tail here a bit more. Here, maybe even a bit of violet in that, different blue. Pull that up. She's got they should have a nice little V there. The bluebirds do. There we go. And that looks okay. And technically, as she comes up onto this edge, she'll have just a bit of a light blue. Technically here, lighter blue edge to her tail right there. So I'll just drop that in real quick and maybe pull just a bit of that for her tail feathers there. Yeah, and that's good. Maybe and then get out of it, Dave. You can start playing and then you're going to end up making it stiff. So yeah, that looks pretty good right there. We'll just call that. So after it all dries down, if you can see, do you need to put any more like lights, maybe lights up around her head or something like that? But overall, their head stays very dark. As a matter of fact, you can see their eye, doesn't pop out that much. Unless they're light. Now this one's way into the light, a little closer to what I did here with this one here. You can put the little shines and stuff like that on there, but I like to see a little burnt sienna. I like this area where you see some of those colors and stuff crossing. It's a lot of fun, okay? Have a great time with it. Now, click like, okay? And what I want you to do is comment those of you who want to paint birds. I have a bunch of them lined out, but if you have a favorite bird that you want to see, hit the comments down there. I can't do them all. We're all going to do 12. But hit the comments down there, and maybe we'll get to your bird, if there's some that you want to see. As long as it's not like, I don't go say I'm going to do so. I want you to do some kind of Amazon parrot. Well, we're doing garden birds, smaller birds that we can do within an hour and a half or so of the video. Okay, something like that. Okay, not too involved. We'll do some of those other little fun ones in the end. Okay, so on to the challenge. What we're going to do with this challenge also. If you like this and if you want to follow us along on the challenge, over on the Jansen Art Studio, the links are right up below in the video description. You'll find the links to the Jansen Art Studio over there, the free videos there. There will be a special page we'll build for the painting of the birds like this. We'll also have a page like this over on Jansen for my online students. We'll have a page there where you can download this final photo here, and then I'll list out all the tools and that I use and the links and everything there. So give us a day or two to put that all together. And so for the next 6 weeks or so, we'll try to do a couple of weeks. Let's paint birds, okay? It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, I'll see you guys on the next one.